Trends forecaster Gerald Celente, in his journal for spring 2010, has said that the Greek tragedy is Act 1 of the bigger drama jeopardizing the Eurozone's single currency bloc. Will economic conditions continue to deteriorate throughout Europe? I spoke to Gerald Celente to find out.
Not only will economic conditions continue to deteriorate throughout Europe, they will continue to deteriorate throughout the world. Let us understand that the world equity markets were collapsing in March of 2009, and the only thing that prevented them from crashing to the ground was that the central banks throughout the world flooded the marketplace with cheap money, whether it was China, India, Japan, the US, the UK, all of Europe, Australia, South Korea. All of this recovery is nothing more than a cover-up. The cover-up happened by flooding the system with cheap money. And now that cheap money is running out, debts are coming due. This is only the beginning. Before the clock strikes 2011, the crash of 2010 will have happened, and the world will realize that the greatest depression has begun.
Draconian austerity measures, including wage and pension cuts and increases in taxes, have been implemented on the Greek people. Do you believe that more measures will be announced?
Yes, more measures will be announced. They will try to squeeze the little people every way they can. And it's not only Greece, it's worldwide. Every time they have to bail out the banks, and let's call this what it is, when they use these fancy words like sovereign debt default, all it is saving the banks that made bad bets. So in order to bail out the banks, they're going to try to get every penny they can from the working people, whether it's in Greece, the US, the UK, you name it. They call them austerity measures, but all they are taxes to cover the losses of the big banks and financiers. What we're looking at is really workers of the world 2.0. We're looking at the beginning of a major worldwide revolt against the people, against the rich financiers. It's happened before in history, and it's happening again.
Now, Mr. Celente, do you foresee Greece leaving the Eurozone?
We not only foresee Greece leaving the Eurozone, we see other countries leaving as well. And again, this is not Monday morning quarterbacking or looking back and making it convenient to make a prediction. We said this would happen when the European Monetary Union was formed. It was incomprehensible that every nation could live under one charter and one currency. It was all done when there was the euphoria of the breakup of the former Soviet Union and the realization of global trade with China entering into the marketplace. The people that put it together at the time only envisioned growth forever. And we knew that when growth started to slow down and conditions worsened, that countries wouldn't be able to sustain a one-currency pact. And we also have to realize that the charters have been broken and they cannot sustain themselves. For example, under the European Monetary Union, the central banks weren't supposed to take on bad debt. Under the European Monetary Union, the IMF wasn't supposed to get involved in bailouts, nor were other countries supposed to get in bailouts of weaker countries. So these are only temporary fixes. We can see many countries going back to their old currencies and going it alone.
When do you predict Greece leaving the Eurozone?
It's difficult to put a timetable on it because they come up with schemes undreamed of. It was against the European Monetary Union Charter for the IMF to bail out other countries, to become involved in it. So they keep changing the rules to suit themselves. It's hard to put a date on it, but we would say within 3 years, 2 to 3 years.
Do you believe that social unrest will erupt on the streets of Athens again?
Social unrest is going to erupt on the streets worldwide. You're seeing it in China with the strikes. You're seeing it in Ireland, in Romania. You're going to see it in the U.S. with the Tea Parties. As a Bronx boy originally, my saying is, when people lose everything and they have nothing left to lose, they lose it. They're losing their homes. They're losing their jobs. They're being thrown out into the streets, all at a time when their taxes are increasing, when they're expected to pay more to help bail out the big guys. As I said, this is Workers of the World 2.0. It's the beginning of the Great War we're seeing that will be the first Great War of the 21st century. As economic systems first break down, social systems later break down, and then they take the people to war.
So you're predicting a war?
Yes, the United States is leading the world to the next Great War. We're seeing it with the Predator drone attacks increasing in Pakistan. They're called extrajudicial killings, and they're against international law. We're seeing it with the United States fronting the Pakistan army to fight a proxy war on the Afghan-Pakistan border. President Obama, the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, I'm getting to wonder if Norway is Orwell spelled backward, has increased wars throughout the world, particularly in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And we're also seeing what's going on with Israel, committing more violations of international law, the latest with the assault on the mission to break the blockade in Gaza with humanitarian aid. So we're looking at a flashpoint in Iran, the Middle East, and also Pakistan. And then we just saw the German minister resign when his words were caught on tape that Germany wants to now expand beyond their borders in fighting wars. Did anybody forget the post-Nuremberg Agreement? The treaty whereby Germany is not supposed to go outside their borders to fight wars? So you see, it starts with baby steps, and then it devolves into goose steps. So the world is being led to war. The military-industrial complex is a reality. The United States is the prime example of an empire in decline, fighting in foreign entanglements, depleting the treasury at a time when your home economy is going into severe recession. Also, it's a way of getting the people's minds off the difficulties, be they economic, or now, of course, we have the greatest environmental disaster that the United States has ever known with the BP oil leak in the Gulf of Mexico. So as times get tougher, what they do is they take people's minds into a different direction. We even heard of the stupidity coming out of South Korea's president, who, as the wars are getting closer between North and South Korea, say, quote, "We don't fear war." What kind of imbecile would make a statement like that? They don't fear war. Do you know who makes those statements? It's these world leaders, the Sarkozys, the Bushes, the Obamas, and the Merkels, the people that never wore a uniform or fought in one, that send other people to go do their killing. They're the ones that don't fear war. They're taking the world to war. It's in the headlines. Current events form future trends. And unless the people rise up against it, their blood will be spilled worldwide. They've done it before. They'll do it again. They're on the path to the first great war of the 21st century.
So what is needed to turn the course of things?
What's needed is they have to stop this whole headlong race toward globalization and this one-size-fits-all economy. Also, what's needed is that people cannot continue to take on debt. Look, there was a time in Greece when people bought things when they had money that they could afford to buy them. They didn't take out huge amounts of debt to do that. They've been suckered in by the banks to borrow a lot of money at low interest rates under the guise that growth would be perpetual. The second thing is, if you're going to put money in stock markets, if you're going to buy bonds, whatever you're doing, you're speculating. You're taking risk. Risk means gambling. There was a time when very few people gambled in the equity markets, and now a lot of people are doing it. You have to stop gambling. You have to stop taking on debt, and you have to start building your economies internally. It's called self-sustaining economies. It kept the world going through centuries. Globalization at this level is new, and the world has become a lot poorer as a result of it. and the gap between the rich and the poor is widened. So the way we go back to it is to have a renaissance, a rebirth, go back to what